In the middle of the French Riviera, where thrills and beauty combine, there is a famous race show, a place where speed and accuracy meet, and people chase their dreams at rapid speed. Every turn here is a task, and every straightaway is a risky test, a battlefield where champions are made and broken. The roar of engines can be heard against the rocks, and the cheers of fans mix with the sound of waves splashing below. Welcome to the Circuit de Monaco. Racing has been a very popular sport held on the streets of Monte Carlo since 1929. So Anthony Noguet, a wealthy French cigarette manufacturer, started to plan the creation of the Circuit de Monaco. Building the circuit takes almost 6 weeks, while disassembling it takes about 3 weeks. The race circuit tests the skills of drivers with its narrow turns, elevation shifts, and tight corners. These features make this track an overall fan favorite, and even drivers also prefer to race on Circuit de Monaco because it provides them with a unique challenge. The circuit, being very narrow and twisty, really pushes drivers to show their expertise, as the power of the car does not have much of an impact. The complications of the circuit have also drastically reduced the rate of overtaking. The first ever race on the circuit was hosted on April 14, 1929, and was won by William Grover Williams. The Monaco Grand Prix begins with a short sprint up Boulevard Albert I, followed by the tight Saint-Devote corner, named after Saint-Devote Chapel. This 90-degree right-hand bend is usually taken in first or second gear and has seen many first-lap accidents. The cars then head uphill along Avenue d'Ostende before changing down for the long left hand at Massenet. The cars drive past the Monte Carlo Casino before reaching Casino Square. They snake down Avenue de Beaux-Arts, avoiding an enormous bump on the left of the track. The cars then head downhill to a double right-hander called Portier before heading into the famous tunnel. However, the tunnel presents a unique problem when it rains, as it usually remains dry while the rest of the track is wet. Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone had local firefighters wet down the road in the tunnel to give it the same surface grip as the rest of the track. Out of the tunnel, the cars have to brake hard for the tight Nouvelle chicane, which has been the scene of several large accidents, including those of Karl Wendlinger in 1994, Jenson Button in 2003, and Sergio Perez in 2011. The chicane is generally the only place on the circuit where overtaking can be attempted. After Piscine, there is a short straight followed by heavy braking for a quick left, followed by the tight 135-degree right-hander called Larras Casse. This corner required full steering lock. It was also the location of one of the most suspicious maneuvers in recent Formula One history, when Michael Schumacher appeared to deliberately stop his car during qualifying for the 2006 race, so as to prevent Fernando Alonso and Mark Webber, who were both following and were on flying laps, from out-qualifying him. Monaco is one of the 3 circuits with only one DRS zone, active along the pit straight from Anthony Noguet to Saint-Devote for a total of 510 meters. However, while Circuit de Monaco does provide a competitive environment, the circuit has gone under numerous upgrades and changes. The first ever improvements to the circuit were made for the 1932 European Grand Prix season. Parts of the circuit were torn up to be replaced with newer and smoother surfaces. In 1935, changes to the chicane were made to make it slower. However, the races only continued in 1939 until the war outbreak forced the cancellation of all race events. After the war settled, Anthony Noguet once again revived the sport in 1948. However, tragedy struck the whole racing community in 1949 as Prince Louis II died, so no race was held. Following that year, 2 Formula One World Championships were hosted on the circuit, which were won by Juan Manuel Fangio. However, once again, races had to be cancelled the following year because the budget and rules for the newer cars had not been released yet. In 1952, the Grand Prix took place with sports cars due to an issue regarding international regulations. The same year, Italian Formula One racer Luigi Fagioli crashed in the qualifying rounds and was declared dead after 18 days. The Grand Prix then regained its place in the World Championship in 1955 and has since been running to date. Since the 1955 Grand Prix, many changes have been made to the circuit, including the start line moving next to the waterfront just a few hundred meters before the gasometer corner. However, another disaster occurred when Alberto Ascari lost control of the chicane and patrol teams had to be called to rescue the racer's car. This forced the chicane to be narrowed down to slow down the cars. Further improvements were made to the circuit in 1963, when the start line was moved back to the pits, and a new 2x2 grid formation had been introduced to decrease the chances of collisions. However, following the crash of Lorenzo Bandini at the chicane in 1967, the start line was moved 100 meters closer to Tabac, slowing the course down. Armco barriers were to be placed at different points of the circuit for the first time in the circuit's history. While being a big improvement in the circuit's overall safety, the demands of the drivers for further improvements in security and separate barriers separating them from tracks resulted in their repositioning in 1972. In 1973, further modifications were made to the circuit at various points because of the construction of a new hotel in the old station hairpin area. This caused the tunnel to be extended towards the Portier curves. Furthermore, in 1976, the curbs and protections were repositioned, and the Saint-Devote and Antony Noguet corners were modified to slow down the cars. Due to the Port chicane area's roadway development in 1986, the chicane itself underwent modifications and became slower. New curbs were constructed to create a double turn at a 90-degree angle in place of the former quick change of direction, which was considered too unsafe. It was named the Nouvelle Chicane. Similar to the first Piscine curve, the second corner also had its barriers moved to help increase visibility in 2003. New temporary curbs were also installed to slow down traffic movements. The extension of the port lane allowed for the correction of the Piscine and La Rascasse portions and made it less difficult and faster. Prior to the 2007 season, the Grand Hotel hairpin's interior curve was expanded and somewhat lowered to make room for single-seaters to ascend on it and finally approach the curve on a reduced trajectory. The drivers pushed for a change in the area between the tunnel's exit and the Nouvelle Chicane in 2011, following a few accidents that happened during race weekend, including the crash of Mexican driver Sergio Perez. They primarily pointed out that the guardrail in the escape route opposite the tunnel was positioned incorrectly and that the road surface had disconnected, but there was no follow-up on these inquiries. Following the crashes of Pasto Maldonado and Max Chilton, minor changes were made to the Tabac corner for the 2015 race. The circuit had moved 2.5 meters closer to the harbor, forcing an earlier turn-in. The 2015 FIA Formula E Championship introduced a new innovation, shortened the Grand Prix course to allow electric racers to turn sharply along Avenue JF Kennedy, resulting in a squared-off hairpin with the remaining track as it is. However, this idea was short-lived. The COVID-19 pandemic forced the cancellation of all races in 2020. However, Formula One made a huge return by holding the first-ever electric car race on the original Circuit de Monaco. Currently, the Circuit de Monaco is scheduled to hold the first Formula One Grand Prix de Monaco in 2024. Have you ever attended a Formula One event? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so you're notified as soon as we upload our next video. Thanks for watching.